Hi, Lily. I know you're not well, so I thought I'd read you another Winnie the Pooh story. And this one is called In Which Pooh Goes Visiting and Gets into a Tight Place. Winnie the Pooh was walking through the forest one day, humming proudly to himself. He had made up a little hum that very morning while he was doing his stoutness exercises in front of the glass. Tra-la-la, tra-la-la, as he stretched up as high as he could go, and then tra-la-la, tra-la, oh help la, as he tried to reach his toes. After breakfast he had said it over and over to himself, and now he was humming it through properly. Tra-la-la, 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 rum-tum, tiddle-lum-tum. Tiddle-liddle, tiddle-liddle, tiddle-iddle, tiddle-iddle, rum-tum-tum, tiddle-lum. Well, he was humming this hum to himself and walking along and wondering what everyone else was doing, when suddenly he came to a sandy bank, and in the bank was a large hole. And there you are, there's Winnie the Pooh walking along. Aha, said Pooh. If I know anything about anything, that hole means rabbit, and rabbit means company, he said, and company means food and listening to me humming and such like. Rum tum tum diddle-um. So he bent down, put his head into the hole and called out, "Is anyone at home?" There was a sudden scuffling noise from inside, and then silence. "What I said was, is anybody at home?" called Pooh very loudly. "No," said a voice, and then added, "You didn't shout quite so loud. I heard you quite well the first time." "Oh, bother," said Pooh. "Isn't there anybody here at all?" "Nobody." Winnie the Pooh took his head out of the hole, and he thought for a little, and he thought, there must be somebody there, because somebody must have said nobody. So he put his head back in the hole and said, "Hello, Rabbit, is that you?" "No," said Rabbit, in a different kind of voice this time. "But isn't that Rabbit's voice?" "I don't think so," said Rabbit. "It isn't meant to be." "Oh," said Pooh. He took his head out of the hole and had another think, and then put it back and said, "Well, could you very kindly tell me where Rabbit is?" "He has gone to see his friend Pooh Bear, who is a great friend of his." "But this is me," said Bear, very much surprised. "What sort of me?" "Pooh Bear." "Are you sure?" said Rabbit, still more surprised. Quite sure," said Pooh. "Oh, well then, come in." So Pooh pushed and pushed and pushed his way, and at last he got in. "You were quite right," said Rabbit. "It is you." "Who did you think it was?" "Well, I wasn't sure. You know how it is in the forest. One can't have anybody coming into one's house. One has to be careful." "What about a little mouthful of something?" Pooh always liked a little something at 11 o'clock in the morning, and he was very pleased to see Rabbit getting out the plates and mugs. And when Rabbit said, "Honey or condensed milk with your bread?" he was so excited he said, "Both." And then he said, "But don't bother about the bread, please." And for a long time after that he said nothing, until at last he got up, shook Rabbit lovingly by the paw, and said he must be going. "Must you?" said Rabbit politely. "Well," said Pooh, "I could stay a little longer if you..." And he tried very hard to look in the direction of the larder. "As a matter of fact," said Rabbit, "I was going out myself directly." Oh, well then, goodbye." "Well, goodbye, if you're sure you won't have any more." "Is there any more?" said Pooh quickly. Rabbit took the covers off and said, No, there isn't." "I thought not," said Pooh. "Well, goodbye." So he started to climb out of the hole. He pulled with his front paws and pushed with his back paws, and in a little while his nose was out in the open again, and then his ears, and then his front paws, and then his shoulders, and then... "Oh, help," said Pooh. "I'd better go back." "Oh, bother," said Pooh. "I shall have to go on." "Oh, help," said Pooh. "I can't do either. Oh, help and bother." Now, by this time, Rabbit had wanted to go out for a walk, so he went out by the back door and came round to the front door and looked at Pooh and said, "Hello, are you stuck?" "No," said Pooh, "just resting and humming to myself." "Come on, give us a paw." Pooh Bear stretched out a paw and Rabbit pulled and pulled. "Ow!" said Pooh, "you're hurting." "The fact is," said Rabbit, "you're stuck." "It all comes," said Pooh crossly, "of not having front doors big enough." "It all comes," said Rabbit sternly, "of eating too much." "I thought at the time," said Rabbit. "Oh, no, I didn't like to say anything," said Rabbit. "That one of us was eating too much," said Rabbit. "And I knew it wasn't me," he said. Well, I shall go and fetch Christopher Robin." Christopher Robin lived at the other side of the forest, and when he came back with Rabbit and saw the front side of Pooh, he said, "Silly old bear," in such a loving voice that everyone felt hopeful again. "I was just beginning to think," said Bear, sniffing, "that Rabbit might never be able to use his front door again, and I should hate that." "So should I," said Rabbit. "Use his front door again," said Christopher Robin. "Of course he will." "Good," said Rabbit. "If we can't pull you out, Pooh, we might push you back." Rabbit scratched his whiskers thoughtfully and pointed out that when once Pooh was pushed back, he was back. And of course nobody was more glad to see Pooh than he was, but some lived in trees and some lived underground, and... "You mean I'd never get out?" said Pooh. "I mean," said Rabbit, "they haven't got so far. It's a shame to waste it." Christopher Robin nodded. "We shall have to wait for you to get thin again." "How long does getting thin take?" asked Pooh anxiously. "Oh, about a week, I should think." "But I can't stay here for a week." "You can stay here all right, silly old bear. It's getting out which is so difficult." "We'll read to you," said Rabbit cheerfully. "And I hope it won't snow," he added. "And I say, old fellow, you're taking up a good deal of room in my house. Do you mind if I use your back legs as a towel horse? Because, I mean, there they are doing nothing, and it would be so handy just to hang the towels on them." "A week," said Pooh. "What about meals?" "No meals," said Christopher Robin, "because of getting thin quicker. But we will read to you." Bear began to sigh, and then found he couldn't because he was so tightly stuck, and a tear rolled down his eye, and he said, "Then would you read a sustaining book, such as would help and comfort a wedged bear in great tightness?" So, for a week, Christopher Robin read that kind of book at the north end of Pooh, and Rabbit hung his washing on the south end, and in between, Bear felt himself getting slenderer and slenderer. And at the end of the week, Christopher Robin said, "Now!" So he took hold of Pooh's front paws, and Rabbit took hold of Christopher Robin, and all Rabbit's friends and relations took hold of Rabbit, and they all pulled together. And for a long time, Pooh only said, "Ow!" And then he said, "Ooh!" And then, all of a sudden, he said, "Pop!" Just as if a cork were coming out of a bottle. And Christopher Robin and Rabbit and all Rabbit's friends and relations went head over heels backwards, and on top of them came Winnie the Pooh, free. So, with a nod of thanks to his friends, he went on with his walk through the forest, humming proudly to himself. But Christopher Robin looked after him lovingly and said to himself, silly old bear. So I hope you like that story, and I hope you get better soon. Mwah! Love you lots.